Hi guys, welcome to the channel. This is Yvonne from Ginger Chick Rehab. Yes, it is time to get some makeovers done. So I actually picked up these two salvage finds from a recent antique mall that was retiring, and for some reason they didn't sell, or they're just getting rid of their inventory. So I'm just going to share with you how I will tweak these a little bit better. So first I was trying to decide, okay, I should take these dowel rods out, but then I'm like, well, if I take the dowel rods out, then I need to fill the holes, and I'm like, well, I really would like to leave these wood. So back in the dowel rod goes, and I grab my Japanese saw to cut them flush. Now that I've dealt with the dowel rod issue and got that nice and flat, you can definitely tell that these are salvaged pieces. They were actually just stained. There's no finish on them, so I'm not sure where the little spots came from. But yes, there's little dark spots, so I'm just taking some 220 sandpaper, seeing if I can sand those out. I mean, I know salvage finds, you're going to get that patina of what happens to them, but I'm going to try to resell these, so I want to bring out the best features I can in them. And then it's funny, as I'm working on these two pieces, it's almost like they're made out of two different woods. They're so similar, but yet they're a little bit different. And since there's no finish on there, I'm going to try to do a little bit of staining with some waxes on these. But the first thing I'm going to start off with is a moist palette, more of an even porosity, so I can control my waxes on these. So I'm starting off with Verithane's natural wax, the clear wax, to work up trying to make these in case somebody wants to buy both of them, so they look a little bit more similar in the color aspect. And adding that natural wax definitely reddened them right up, so I'm going to go ahead and go in with some Waverly antiquing wax, hoping to darken up that red just a little bit more. Only am I hoping that the antiquing wax helps eliminate a little bit more of that red, but I want it to kind of stick into the detailed areas to make them pop and give them a little bit more age. So I'm rubbing off the excess, but not trying to rub it off where the detailed crevices are. And the details still are not popping the way I want them to. So I'm going to go in with some Jolie's white wax. And while all the waxes are still moist, they're still wet, I'm just going to apply this in those detail areas too. Now this little file box was in a auction haul that, yep, it just came with stuff. So not that I bid on it, it was just an extra, but I can see making this over, just adding some feet, adding some decoupage paper, getting it a paint job. This makeover should help it sell. I've actually done items like this before from the thrift store, so I was super excited when I saw this in the box. First thing that I want to do is go ahead and get that finish off there. I need something for my paint to grab onto, and it will not grab onto a shiny finish. So I need to scuff sand this box. Even though it's a smaller piece, you still have to do all that prep work. After getting it all sanded, blown off with the air compressor, cleaned up with some Dawn dish soap, and letting the wood dry, I'm just going to attach the feet. So I'm choosing to do that flat surface because I have some more surface area to glue and attach to the bottom. You could flip it the opposite way, but there's just not quite as much of a surface to surface area. So just some Tite Bond quick and click to glue these on. There's I don't really think there's a need to screw them in. They're not very heavy, and this itself is not very heavy, and Tite Bond is really a great wood to wood glue. It is made for this. A lot of times when I glue something, I usually let it sit overnight, and so these are good and dry, and now I can move on to painting them. Decided to change my idea for the paper because the paper pieces I was going to use, they would have like sat off to the side, and I didn't really like that visually, so I'm deciding to use this paper. So if you're wondering why didn't I not paint the inside, why did I take the time to tape it off? If I would have painted that dark black, then my paper would have been black. So yes, that's why I left that as is. If I really wanted this paper to be that bright white that it is right now, I could have painted the underneath white, but I actually would like it to look a little aged, kind of like the previous paper my idea was. So leaving that wood tone underneath, I'm going to be able to get that to look more of a wood tone with this white paper. If that makes sense, I hope that makes sense. Just watch, you'll see. Anyway, so now I'm making sure that I am a good fit. I don't need to cut too much extra off before gluing it down, trying to make sure that I'm centered. I'm not cutting off any of the letters. So all I'm going to use to adhere this is some polycrylic. I was using a balled up piece of saran wrap to help flatten out the paper, and now I'm taking a pair of scissors just in the corners to relieve that pressure so it is a nice tight fit into the corners. Now I'd actually like my paper to brown up. I'd like it to take the color of the underneath wood tone. So before my polycrylic is dry on the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and put a top coat of the polycrylic on the top. And as you see, now that white paper is turning a little bit more brown. Now I actually let this sit overnight to completely dry since I did a polycrylic on the top, polycrylic on the bottom, and I do need to cut a little bit of the paper off. I tried really hard not to go up on the sides when I was doing my polycrylic, so I just have a metal ruler and a very sharp X-Acto knife to make some nice clean cuts to remove that excess paper. I want my box to have a little bit more age to it, so I'm taking some 220 sandpaper. I'm going over all those sharp corners, taking that all the way down to that wood that's underneath. And then I'm also going to go in on the paper. If there's any raised areas, I want to make sure that this is nice and flat. So I want it to look aged. So if it takes a little bit of the paper off, I'm good with that. And then I'm also going to run the 220 sandpaper very gingerly over the flat area just to scuff it up just a bit. And I want to pop in just a little bit more of the brown, so I'm just taking some antiquing wax over the rest of the black area. That's going to richen up that black. It's going to pop the wood that I went down to the natural. And then I'm also going to run it over the paper too, just to tie any areas that are really still white. That's just how the polycrylic took, just to give it a little bit more age. So it's a wipe on and then wipe off the excess. My next pieces. Actually, the bird cage is a Goodwill find, and I know the candlestick I've had laying around just waiting to be used. I love to put bird cages on risers, so I'm going to get these cleaned up, remove the tags definitely off of there's a lot of tags on the bottom of that bird cage, but yes, this candlestick, I love to pick these up and hoard on them until the right time to use them. Then before getting these painted, I want to get these glued together. So actually, this candlestick will actually come apart. So I'm removing a screw to take off this piece, and I'll save that for another project maybe, because you know that's what we do as crafters. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the screw, get that tightened back down. Now I have a much flatter surface. Glue these two together. But I want to make sure that I get a good bond, so I'm going to go ahead and remove some of the top coat on this candlestick. You know, we want to scuff sand it to paint, but I also sometimes need to scuff sand it to get the glue to have something to adhere to also. Couple clamps to hold it in place and let that glue dry overnight, and then the next morning I removed the clamps, and now I want to do a little bit of distressing, but I want to also spray this piece. I got metal, I have wood, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some Vaseline in just some general areas that might have wear over time. That way the Vaseline will prevent the paint from sticking. Once my paint is dry, I'm just going to take a wet wipe and start wiping off all that Vaseline, and it's going to leave some of that distressed look underneath. And I absolutely love this technique. It is super easy. You just choose where you don't want your paint to stick. The same concept with these two pieces. Now the red metal piece was an auction that I actually bid on at our local auction that we go to every Tuesday night, and then I have this piece that actually has been in my hoard trying to figure out what to match it up with, and look at it's a perfect fit. And before I get those comments, no y'all, I'm not painting this wooden bowl. It's absolutely a gorgeous walnut. I'm just going to get it cleaned up and get those tags removed. I am going to go ahead and paint this red base up. I like the red. I like distressing on it, but I don't know that white, it just really makes it look, it screams I have a really fake look distressed on it, even though I'm going to distress it. But anyway, so I'm going to do that same thing with the Vaseline. I'm going to pick those areas that have that brown showing through, put a little Vaseline on there, so when I go to spray this piece, since I'm not painting the wood bowl, I'm not going to attach that until after I get this base painted. And actually here my paint isn't actually completely, it's dry to the touch, but it's not cured overnight. It's that enamel paint, so I'd like to have it dry completely, but why not go ahead and get this bowl glued on so that it can sit overnight also. So same thing, I'm using that quick and thick tight bond glue that seems to be working fine with metals and wood together, so just putting a nice healthy coat along the entire rim so I'm not missing any of that surface area. And I don't want to clamp this piece, so I'm just going to set a full gallon of paint on there overnight to give it that pressure to get glued together. And now, since it's sat overnight, now I'm comfortable going in with a wet wipe and wiping off that Vaseline for those distressed areas. I just didn't really want to disturb the paint when it wasn't fully cured yet. I'm going to use a little bit of the Restore and Finish just to freshen up that walnut. It's good and clean, but it's kind of just dull looking, so if I'm going to make everything else pretty, why not make the bowl a little bit refreshed too? Every metal seems to take that enamel paint just a little bit differently, and I think this is really on the shiny side, so I'm holding my breath. I'm saying my prayers. I'm going to put some polycrylic in the mat over the top of this to hopefully take some of that shiny down. I'm praying that it doesn't crackle the paint, but it did dry overnight, so maybe I will have luck. Fingers crossed. Is there anything cuter than this little mini, which I thought was first a bread box? Oh my gosh, I've always loved redoing these bread boxes anyway, and this is a mini recipe holder. Oh my goodness. Though this one I cannot really take apart without destroying it at all, so I'm just going to come up with a little bit more of a updating for it, but oh, things that are little are so stinking cute. I'm just going to do my best to try to get this nice and clean. Yep, estates, auctions, wherever you find salvaged goods, they always need a good cleaning. And as I'm cleaning, I can tell that this dust is stuck in the corner. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a Q-tip to get that rest of that dust build up out of the corners. Now there is some mystery goop that is maybe a glue substance, I'm not sure, that is raised and bumpy. It would not wash off, so I'm just going to take the Orbital sander and sand that nice and smooth. And I really do like the two-tone, and it really does sell for me. So since this is in wonderful shape, I'm going to go ahead and tape off that rolling part so as that I don't get any paint on it. When you have a little bit of stain left, a little bit of top coat left, and then you have raw wood, you really need to even out the porosity before moving on to your color paint via a primer, or what I'm using here is shellac to even that out. So now I can proceed on painting this piece. After my black paint is dry, I'm going to go ahead and seal that black paint in with some polycrylic. I'm going in with some 220 sandpaper now that my polycrylic is dry. I'm going to take all those sharp edges, take it down to the wood, and you see I did a lot of taping on this piece not to paint anything. I didn't want to get painted because I was using the sprayer in other pieces, so why not take the time to tape off other areas so I could use the sprayer on this piece. But to tie the wood of the door together, I'm going to go ahead and get all those fun little sharp edges sanded down to that natural wood. And then I want to open up my black paint up just a little bit, make sure that everything is nice and smooth. And actually, I'm going to seal this in with a natural wax. I'm not looking to richen up that brown. I like the contrasting of where the distressing is against that beautiful wooden accordion drawer there along with the back. So I'm just gonna use some natural wax and just freshen this up, and I'm gonna run it over the door also to give that dry wood a drink. This piece I picked up at an estate sale. Actually, I was the only one at the estate sale, and they really didn't even know where I was finding all this crockery. But this is just a crockery vase. And at first I thought it was a manufacturer done like this, but the more I had it in my hoard, my stash, I was like, I think somebody actually painted this. But the crockery underneath is dry, so soaking it in water wasn't really working to get that layer off. But as you see, some sandpaper will. So at first I started off by hand sanding it to work that paint off. I didn't really like the random sponge spots that are on there, but I quickly moved to my Orbital sander to make the job go just a wee bit faster. And then as you see, I didn't get every little bit off. It was not a completely smooth texture, but it's that perfectly imperfect, and I like it much better than the sponge spots that were on there, and I just think it already has that aged look. So here I am using Tracy's contraption again to stop something from rolling, and what I did was crows sell really well. I don't know about you all, but crows sell well in my area. So when I was looking at this, I thought, you know what, I can cricket out just a silhouette of a crow and put it on the front of this vase just to give it a little something something. Now the hard part was the decision. Do I make it small? Do I make it big? And then my decision was like, I'm just going for it and I'm going to make a big crow. Paint color, I'm going to go ahead and use the Farm Implements paint, only because then I don't have to go back in with any type of top coat. One coat should be plenty for the coverage, so I'm just using a makeup sponge from the Dollar Tree store to just lightly pat it on. It may be a little bit glossy, but usually Crocs do have a little bit of gloss to them, so I think it'll be perfect. So thanks for watching today, and let me know, have I inspired you in any way to look at secondhand finds in a new way? I absolutely love to envision items, share the process with you all of what I do with these items, whether you are a reseller like me or they're just items that you have laying around your own home that you would like to update and make new. There's nothing like a refreshed home to just give you that warm, fuzzy feeling. So give me a quick comment down below which of the items were your favorite. And as always, if you're part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you popped on this channel and checked out what we're up to and all about, and you liked what you saw, please hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know when we've uploaded a new video. And we will see you next time, guys, and you can see what we're up to. Bye!